today. My name is Darlene Mahoney. I am the National Digital Sales Director with SeniorLivingGuide.com, and I also host our podcast, SeniorLivingGuide.com podcast. So if you haven't checked that out, please do. A little bit about SeniorLivingGuide.com, if you're unfamiliar with us. We are a senior housing publication that is available in 4 states: Florida, North Carolina, South Carolina, and Virginia. We also have something that people don't know about, and I've not brought this up before, but I'm definitely going to bring it up today, is we have hospital directories. If you did not know, they're available in 13 states, and we average about 40 markets, a little between 35 and 40 markets. We also have, as I mentioned, a senior and caregiver focused resource podcast, and it's available anywhere you would like consume music, such as Spotify or Apple Podcasts is where it's mostly downloaded. So please take some time, check that out. It might be something that a senior or caregiver that you care about would find some really great everyday information for their everyday lives. And then we also have a national reach website. National reach. We provide on that website real-time leads to our advertising partners with flat monthly pricing, customized solutions with social collaboration. We really do offer a lot to our clients. We're not just a few little things that we offer, but really quite a bit. So if it's something that you're interested in, please just email me back or get in contact with me, and I'll be able to provide you any information you might be interested in. And with that said, I'm going to introduce you today to John, and I want to pronounce it. I was pronouncing it wrong. It's not Angelett, it's Angelett.
Yeah, long E's.
Long E's Johnson with the Small Assisted Living Coalition. And they can really tell you more about what they do and what they bring to the table and their expertise in working with small and senior communities, and really how, what the value propositions are with some of those and their expertise. So anyway, take it from here, guys.
Thank you, Darlene. I appreciate that. And we're definitely grateful to Senior Living Guide for allowing us to come on here. And I do want to give big ups to Robin Lindbeck for insisting that this happen.
This is true. Yes, Robin, thank you. Yes. I do apologize. I did not mention her.
Yes, and Darlene, you've done a great job making sure that we were prepared. So thank you all very much. And so just a little bit about us. Again, Angelett and John, the Small Assisted Living Coalition is our company. We founded it several years ago. Our background is ownership. We've owned and operated our own assisted living community in the past. Both of us are core trained administrators. The Small Assisted Living Coalition has actually grown into a senior living placement and senior care referral agency. And because of that, it kind of uniquely positions us because we have owned and operated. So we've got that experience, the core administrative training that we, in our certification from the state of Florida. I will like to say that we are in Florida. So that's our background and our experience. But as you may not know this, but Florida is a mecca for the senior population. So hence we have a lot of senior living communities here in the Florida market. So the question today is, what value proposition are you offering to your consumers, whether you're a small, mid-size, or large senior community? In our background, working in the senior industry and helping seniors get connected to the right fit as it comes time for them to transition into senior care. Senior living is not a one-size-fits-all. And today we're going to kind of look at the varying ways the small to large operators strive to meet the needs of our senior consumers as they choose senior living options. Okay, so I'm going to go to this next. I'm going to try to go to the next slide. Uh-oh.
Well, I'll give you a little more background as we figure out our technical issue here. Although Darlene did a great job, everything was functioning up to 2:02. We are in a small environment, and the uniqueness of the experiences that we have is that we've also sat on the boards with several of the hospitals here addressing readmissions. We work with hospice. We've sat on the board with University of South Florida when they were creating their core curriculum. So we've gone from nuts and bolts, we've given care directly, and we sat on critical thinking think tanks in order to provide better services to the community. Okay, so we'll follow back with the PowerPoint. Thank you.
Thank you.
So just to define the value proposition and what it means in marketing specifically, it is an innovation, service, or a feature intended to make a company or product attractive to its customers. Some of the best value propositions outside of senior living are companies like Uber. Uber came up with this incredible innovation to make getting around town smart and easy. So they created an app. They made it easy to book rides. They made it easy to pay. They made it safe and secure because they background check their drivers. They track the drivers. So they created a value proposition within that space. Mm-hmm. Apple iPhone also. The phone is the experience, okay? So people will pay big money for that experience of owning an iPhone, right? Well, in our role in the senior living space, in order for us to create value proposition, we've got to first examine the motives of the consumer. Motives such as wants, needs, and fears, right? And today we're gonna go into each one of those areas. Starting with our pie chart. The pie chart here broke it down into features, experience, the benefits, and then a little nugget at the end is going to be the insight. Okay.
Yeah, you mentioned on the last slide the fears. The fears is probably new, right? You probably weren't talking fears a year ago.
It's especially not fears as it relates to infectious diseases. I think there was always an element of fear of some, fear of giving up independence.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
Fear of, the isolation piece. But that fear that COVID presented is huge. And we're going to talk a little bit about that towards the end. Because it's not going away, apparently.
Apparently.
No matter how much we've prayed for it to leave. So we're going to start with features today. Features, and you'll see that most features are common when it comes to assisted living communities, regardless of the size. And especially, like I said, these are general terms because we are coming from the state of Florida. Assisted living, common features, whether it's a small residential size home or a large community or mid-sized community. Your assistance with your IADLs and your ADLs. That's pretty much across the board. Medication management, the in-house pharmacy, because it gets delivered from a third party. The medical and therapy services, again, being delivered into those communities from a third party vendor. Common across the board. Private baths and showers, of course, the larger the building, the more availability the private baths and private showers are going to be. However, the smaller residential homes are making a push and have made a push to provide private spaces for their residents. Some of the larger community features that smaller communities have to be creative or have to layer. Maybe they have to partner with another service provider, are things like the barber shops. The large communities, they're going to have a separate space, with the chairs and the shampoo bowls and that type of thing. But that doesn't mean that the smaller communities can't provide that same thing. We've got members that we partner with who are licensed as an ALF in an 8-bed residential home that created put a shampoo bowl in the garage, just outside there. It's still enclosed. She brings in a hairdresser or barber, depending on her senses at the time. Maybe she has to bring both. And, you know, they have a spa day and they, you know, do their hair that way. So just again, some of the ways that the smaller communities would be able to layer those services. Trips and entertainment. So the large communities, of course, have the big buses and they have the fleet of cars and they can take their residents out on excursions and that type of thing. And our smaller community, they may have to, you know, layer a service with a, you know, a transportation company of sorts. We've got communities though that they're smaller communities and they'll the owners will take the residents out. Adult family care homes are another license option that we have here in the state of Florida, where they'll take all of their residents in the camper on a camping trip, you know, that kind of thing. So they are making ways to, again, layer those services. Volunteer opportunities, you know, large communities are definitely huge with this because they've got the you know, they've got the little general stores, so their residents can volunteer with that. They've got, you know, resident assistants who, you know, kind of help keep things in line in the larger communities within the resident pool, or they may act as the liaison between the residents and the community management. So that's another volunteer area that the large communities are very attractive with. Smaller communities, they may have to go to an outside source, again, like a seniors in service type setup where you've got seniors who are working for this nonprofit agency, and they're partnering with the smaller communities to give those higher functioning residents in the smaller settings an opportunity to volunteer.
Yeah, you know, you and I were talking a little bit about the partnering. You know, you can get really creative in finding people that really care about seniors within your community that would volunteer and partner with you on a lot of these things. And one of the things I brought up, and I don't really know the answer, but I think that there's probably a lot of churches that have a heart for seniors, have a heart for community, and, you know, not just be willing to bring them to church potentially, but to, you know, lunch bunch outings and to community theater and some of those different things, volunteer to participate in some of those for seniors. I think that's worth, you know, having a conversation maybe with a small community church or something of that nature, or even a large church, who knows? But, you know, I was just talking to you about that at one point.
And it's true. I think that absolutely reaching out to the community as a whole outside of the assisted living section, you know, one of the things that several of our smaller models will do is they will partner with some of the schools, like the band or the orchestra, and for special occasions they'll bring those kids over, you know, a small group of those kids from the school, and they'll put on a show for the seniors, you know, and it works out really well. I know the larger communities really are robust with that kind of stuff. Our smaller communities can also adapt. It's just on a smaller scale, you know, but they can still bring in those services and, like you said, partner with a church for excursions. Absolutely. Absolutely.
Well, one thing that we also want to remember too is that part of the state regulations for Florida is that each community licensed as an assisted living community has to provide 12 hours of recreational services. Minimum. So there's no lack of entertainment opportunities on either side of the fence.
True. Very true.
Yeah.
All right. And then I do want to highlight, as far as the larger communities, the separate independent AL and memory care, and sometimes they even have the SNF buildings, you know, referred to, of course, as the CCRCs. But that's one of those areas too that they may differ. Whereas in a small community, the features when it comes to, you know, having those separate areas. And that may be in the benefits section of our next slide.
But you also get the uniqueness, you know, when you're going to talk about the small assisted living arena, a lot of times you're going to get the ethnicity, the culture, the feeling of walking into your grandma's house, because you're going to get the home cooked meals. You're going to get the loving touches. The caregivers are going to know the individual's likes and wants on an intimate level. And that becomes quite a benefit. And especially during the pandemic, what we found is that we had a lot of the larger communities that were going to a neighborhood model. So what they were actually trying to do was replicate that small, intimate environment in a larger structure.
Right.
So,
which definitely gets into the feeling part of where we're going with our next few slides. I think too that where the mid-size and the large communities fare really well is being able to offer that guest room or the kitchen with the independent or the private, the apartment with the private kitchen. The smaller communities, that's not an area that they excel in, right? It's really more about having the private space and having the common areas that you share with the few other residents that are in there with you. So
absolutely.
All right. So now the experience, how does the community feel? Okay. Which kind of goes back to what John was just saying a few minutes ago with the smaller communities, and here's some of the areas that we felt that the smaller communities fare a little bit better in terms of that high caregiver to resident ratio. And then the more continuity of care, because you don't have the extreme turnovers and staffing as you do, say, in the larger environments. Both options are high level of staff training, engagement. You still get the engagement. They're both rich in customer service. They're both supporting environments regardless of the size of the community. The family community oriented, and like John was saying earlier, creating those smaller neighborhoods and the mid-size and large environments does bring it back down to that small setting. You know what I mean? You can get that more home feel, or like it's grandma's home or mom's home, right?
And it's really apparent when you start looking at the higher care levels, when you're looking at dementia and Alzheimer's, as that resident is progressing in their disease, they start losing their sensory functions. And this is based off of the research out of the Johnny Bird Institute, some of the trainings we've taken. And one of the last sensories to go is the hearing. So as they age in place in those smaller communities or in the larger communities, it's really highly effective to have a caregiving team that is consistent, so that even though that senior may not be able to say, oh, that's Betty, she will recognize the voice and attribute that to, okay, she gets me up in the morning, she's going to shower me. Because when you run into those high turnovers with the caregivers, those are strangers. The further that senior goes into from dementia to Alzheimer's, it becomes really hard for them to accept care. Okay, they really need to have formed those relationships. And one thing that I like to share with our audience is, if you have family members and you're having a conversation and you're getting together about grandma or maybe great grandma, and you're on the fence between, should we place her in an ALF or should we keep her and give her care? If she's been diagnosed or he's been diagnosed with dementia, it is better to place them sooner so that they can still form those relationships with their caregivers. A lot of times we've seen extreme cases where the wife tried to keep the husband at home because she loves him and she took an oath to take care of him. But what happens is that he's gone past the point where he's able to form a new relationship due to his disease. So they may keep them at home longer. And then when they have to place her because she just can't take care of him, he's getting up in the middle of the night, she can't bathe him, and she's forced to put him in. At that point, they have to do it through medication in order to provide care. So that is just some of the things to kind of think about when you're in that position.
It's about making the connection on any level. So whether it's the memory care or you got a resident who just needs medication management or prospect just needing medication management that's come to your building, it's about making the connection. And no matter what size your community is, the big question is always, can an individual or family member see themselves or their loved ones in your community? You've still got to make that experience, that feeling, that connection has to be made.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
All right. And I do want to point out too that with the larger communities, they do tackle this higher caregiver resident ratio to the memory care. So the memory care does increase its caregiver to resident ratio when you get to that point, or you have a loved one gets to that point. All right. So I'm going to the next slide. All right. So then the benefits. And again, we kind of touched on some of this already, but plans for future care needs in the same place. Of course, our CCRC communities really tackle this very well because they have all of the stages available to them on the same property.
Can you explain the CCRC to the audience?
Mm-hmm.
Yes. So that's the continuing care. So you would have the IL, the AL, memory care, and then the nursing services. There's generally an upfront cost for that too. So there's a large community fee that gets paid on the front end, but those different stages of care are guaranteed throughout the aging process. One of the things that our smaller communities, they don't call themselves CCRCs, but they allow for aging in place too. The thing that the smaller communities have to kind of balance really well is a CCRC has the independent, has the different functionalities, larger numbers. So someone going into a large community in an IL, that's relatively higher functioning, going into a smaller environment, they may not be able to offer that balance of care amongst the residents as a larger community can. So that's one of the trade-offs. However, the cost factor in a smaller environment does kind of trump the larger community cost factors when it comes to somebody coming in as higher functioning. In a small setting, generally they're going to keep them at that rate. However, in a larger mid-size to a large community, that cost continues to increase. Again, generally speaking.
And maybe it's relevant to actually give a little definition. Assisted living. Assisted living under the state of Florida means that community is going to provide activities of daily living. Activities of daily living are bathing, grooming, showering, meal preparation, and laundry. There's no nursing services attached to it. Okay, it's just like being at home and you're going to take care of your aunt, your uncle, your grandparents. Okay, independent living is going to be more independent, where you're not going to assist them with any of those functions. You're only going to oversee that individual. You will probably provide meals, but they'll have their own atmosphere. They'll have their own environment. A skilled community, skilled rehabs, will provide all of the medical services. Within an assisted living community, you do bring in nursing services based off of the prescriptions of the physicians. So a physician says, okay, Mrs. Brown that's inside of the assisted living community needs she has a sprain and we want to bring in physical therapy. So the assisted living community will contract with the home health agency and bring that service inside the community so that the family doesn't have to take them out to an outside physician or physical therapist. Okay.
Nice.
Right.
Okay.
Oh, my wife said nice. You hear that? Oh my God.
So again, continuing on with our comparison, nutritional needs, socialization, memory support. These are all common across the board when it comes to the different sizes. However, the larger mid-sized communities will have a more robust socialization calendar than the smaller ones do. They have some socialization. Sometimes it's intimate enough for the right individual. Sometimes an individual needs to have 20 people at bingo versus 3 or 4. So again, this is some of the stuff that we get involved in when it comes to helping navigate the right choice for our clients. Safety is huge. Okay, so we're going back to those fear factors early on. Smaller spaces, less space to really fall. I'm not saying that you don't have falls in smaller communities, but the response time is really, really fast. So that's an area where they may fare a little bit better than a larger mid-sized community from the family's perspective. Okay, mom's a fall risk, or mom can't walk down the long hall to the dining room. Now, the large communities, mid-sized communities, they get creative too in logistics. So if you've got someone who is struggling to get to the dining room, they may put them closer, give them an apartment closer to the dining room. So there's things that each one of these size communities can do and does do in order to make it more attractive to the consumer.
Yeah, it really is about having a really good conversation with the family about the personality of the senior. I know with my dad, it was probably a middle size, not small, not large. It was mid one, which is what we went with. Because I think the large one, because he was starting to go in cognitive decline, which he actually did have dementia, would have been overwhelming for him. And then I think too small would have been just too small. So, I mean, it was a good fit for him, but it's a balancing act on all of these different things and kind of trying to figure out what's a good fit. But you also still want to have, what's offered in each one. You still want to have it available. And clearly the safety, you want that across the board.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
Makes sense.
Yeah. And I can tell you that memory support in a small setting is just as robust as it is in the larger settings. The same training takes place. And, sometimes it matters. Sometimes you have somebody who has memory impairment and they need space to walk around, so a large community that has a track or an outside track or something like that is better equipped to handle that memory care prospect. Sometimes the memory person needs somewhere a little more quiet. They don't need to have all of those sensory things going on. So then the smaller environment does fare well with them.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
All things to think about.
Yes, lots to think about. And I'm sure our audience has some of their own thoughts too, and what they're doing in their communities. And again, this is just a perspective.
Yeah.
So our final slide, and we would like to get some audience participation on this for sure. But one of the things that John wanted to share with us is some insight, post-COVID insight on new design concepts.
Yes, we also own a company. I'm a licensed real estate agent. I broker assisted living communities. We have a company by the name of ALF for Sale. And with meeting some of the architects and construction general contractors post-COVID, because we're in the state of Florida, we have to be progressive. There's a lot of seniors here, and how do we protect them in the future? So I've had these conversations and with some of the business owners of the larger communities and how they're moving forward now. And some of the things that they had shared with me is that now when they're creating these structures, they're implementing sanitation stations, okay, already in place, coming in through those front doors. doing temperature checks, having a device that as the employees as well as the families and the residents are coming in, that they can get those temperature checks, you know, because there is now a new business model in terms of how we protect our seniors. Having a larger window design, more sunlight, D3 vitamins coming into as a natural antibiotic to whatever infectious diseases are coming along. Separate pods created outside so that possibly the community would bring their family member outside and they could have a secure, clean, beautiful structure that they can still share time with their family members. Because when we went into COVID, we were unprepared. So we had never been in a position that we would be separated from our seniors and it would be a federal mandate. Okay, so now we had to be creative post-COVID and separate COVID wings, because what we found that upon discharges from the hospitals, needing to find placements for the seniors, ALFs, independent communities and skill, really they didn't have isolated wings or wards that they could accept those admissions, because these elderly still needed care. They still needed to be in a safe environment, and we needed to be able to incubate them for 14 days so that we could get a secondary or a third or secondary negative test before bringing them into the communities. In terms of some of the, you know, because we were in COVID, did not slow down dementia or Alzheimer's for possibly that wife that's taking care of her husband and, you know, she can't take care of him. You know, so in order to find communities where there was a turn towards the communities creating virtual videos, virtual tours and videos, so that the family could look at it from different parts of the country and say, that looks good. It's not the same as walking in, but they did give you an overall feeling for the environment that senior may need to be placed in or wanted to be placed in. So things did change. We're looking to absolutely still provide care, and the state of Florida is very progressive in implementing new technologies.
And of course, depending on the size of your structure and your construction budget, it's all fine and good to talk about this when you're building a new community, but one of the things that I thought would be fun is to kind of get some audience participation on how would you kind of identify what size community you have or what size community you're experienced with, and give us some ideas on how you would implement some of these design concepts, post-COVID design concepts. I know that the smaller communities, I've seen homes make small sinks set outside of the doorway, very tactfully done, you know, where people can come and wash their hands, you know. Of course, the hand sanitizer and the temperature gauge. Not all companies can afford to put in the electronic version of a temperature scan. But anyway, that's kind of the idea here, is to get some audience input on what they think would be a good alternative to new construction on some of this stuff.
Yeah, I think, you know, just looking at some of the things on your list here, the larger windows for more vitamin D sunlight, I think that's amazing. And that's something that would be a construction issue, but you could do it with an existing building.
Yes.
I think I think that's good no matter what. I don't think that necessarily even is just a COVID thing, but I think that's a good, you know, it's good for, you know,
the soul.
Well, yeah, I do think that, you know, people that can see out the window, that can get the natural sunlight, it's just, there's a warmth, there's a comfort, there's all kinds of different things that happen with getting, bringing the outside in per se.
Sure.
So I think that would be a really great option.
Yeah.
And then I know that we have a lot of our clients that are utilizing that virtual video tour. I mean, they've been doing it for quite some time. We utilize a company called we've worked with a company called Heart Legacy that provides really great videos and virtual tours. They do a great job. I think that's a great way in order for people to get that experience, utilizing that. And if you know, small communities can do the exact same thing in a very easy, affordable way that doesn't have to be a large community expense. You can absolutely do that with a small community, and be able to connect with those folks that are interested as well. And and that's something you can utilize with, like, I always call it a heartstring message or what have you, because you can get the residents, you can see lifestyle, something authentic, something that's really happening with your community, even during a virtual tour, so that they can see what it's like to live within the walls of your community without being in the community. It's not just about, you know, what the bedroom looks like, what the community looks like, you know, that type of thing. It's what life looks like within the community. That can be the game changer, way beyond, you know, what the things look like, because people like to live in nice places, but that doesn't necessarily going to indicate the life they're going to have inside the nice place.
It's true. And we've even, with those videos, one of the ones that we use is able to measure space within the room. So you can pretty much stage the room without even being in the room, with the furnishings and that type of thing.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that was.
Oh, I'm so sorry. We did have a question that popped up, so I didn't mean to interrupt you. So Andrea Overmeyer asked about installing air quality improvements in the HVAC equipment or portable units.
I'm sorry, could you repeat that?
Andrew Overmeyer asked, have we discussed installing air quality improvements in the HVAC equipment or portable units?
We haven't discussed that, but we've heard of that being an option. Absolutely. I know, I don't know of any communities per se that are doing it. I know that we've talked about it. I've seen the advertisements. I know, you know, you've got your airlines are doing that kind of thing, you know, sanitizing the air through the AC system. But definitely, that's huge, you know.
Yeah.
I believe there's actually two avenues that I've heard discussed. You have the option with those portable units that you can place inside of an area and it can take care of 3,000 square feet to sanitize the air. There's also the larger, I believe what your question, the gentleman's question was addressing, was the UV systems or lights that they're putting within the AC systems. Those are very effective and cost effective as well. Now, in terms of how many assisted living communities or independents have installed those, I don't know personally, but I do know that that technology is good technology, even for a personal home. You know, during this uncertain time that we're dealing with. Anything that can sanitize is a home run. There's also cleaning robotics now that are sanitizing environments during the night, so that when you're on the downtime, they just let the robot go through the building, and it's using laser to, just as Angelique was saying, measuring those rooms and spraying everything and continuing. So there's a lot of innovation out there now, but definitely sanitization, especially if we're going into another pandemic and we believe that we could be headed in that direction. I believe that's going to be an everyday need.
Yeah, and I think that technology is just going to continue. I think it's going to get smarter. I think there's going to be products out there that are probably being worked on now. Clearly, we're literally just barely a year into when this started. What, March, April, May, June, July, not even a year and a half. And I know people are probably working on things that are getting better. And I do think that having, you know, products in senior living, regardless of whether there's a pandemic or not, there's always infectious diseases that are that are issues. So I think it's always good to have something that's created, and it could just be something that's utilized post-pandemic, because I have faith that we will have a post-pandemic world.
We will.
Absolutely.
I agree totally.
Yeah. I'm not going to call it a new normal. It's a new for now normal.
Right. I agree. The thing that is consistent is change. The only thing that's relevant is the relationships that we have as humans. One of the things that I'll give you guys as our own experience is when I'm working with any type of senior business or resource, such as home health, pharmacy, physician, nurse practitioners. I watch how they interact with the seniors in their environment. If they walk into a building and they pass seniors and they don't say hello, they don't smile, I don't allow their service to come into the building, because I believe that this has to be a position that is given us an honor in order to take care of our seniors. It cannot be a resource pool, because it becomes, we connect as human beings, and as the seniors age, they need that more and more. So I don't want a physical therapist that comes into my assisted living community that doesn't love the senior. Okay,
100%.
Absolutely.
That's what it's all about. That's exactly what it's all about. One of the things that I had a comment here, and this isn't about the insight portion, so I'm going to kind of skip ahead a little bit, is I had someone say, having mobile books. So I thought that was, I thought that was kind of a good thought as far as that goes. And another thing that kind of popped in my head is having even just, an ice cream, mobile ice cream food truck. What are they called? That would come around, and I know there's like a snow cone machine. I know there's one in here. It's like it's a Kona thing, I think is what it's called. And they'll come, and I think stuff like that. Even food trucks, although I don't know if they get that excited about food trucks, but anything that's fun like that can come to them, even at a small community. So you're not taking them out and running that risk of, you loading everybody up in a community van or whatever. It still creates that activity, something different, exciting, and new. And there's some kind of, community involved with it. I think that's always fun.
It's so true. And one of the things too, a lot of the providers that are wanting to partner with the communities, they'll help, they'll sponsor those kind of things, because we've had, I know they do it in our market, but your long-term care insurance providers, they're always eager to do things like that. So it doesn't necessarily have to come out of the community's budget. Again, it just goes back to being creative and making those connections with the different service providers out there, and not making it just about a pool of resources for them, but to give something back.
Yeah. Now, Lynn Dierke, and I'm sure I just completely trashed her last name because it's what I do, but she mentioned pet therapy, and I am always down for pet therapy. I have experienced pet therapy and found incredible. I don't even know how it works, how they make it work. But I worked at a news station after the shootings at the Pulse nightclub. And for some reason, it rocked my world. It was like something that just completely, it got in my psyche. It was just a horrific thing for me. And I've been through some stuff even since then I didn't really realize how it would affect my life. But they brought in therapy dogs. And I think it's because we were in the newsroom. And so we were all up in it every single day. But they brought in the pet therapy dogs, and it was like having them there after they left. I felt just relief. And I just felt like so much joy and peace and love having them in there. So I got the last name right. Thank you. But I will tell you that it was a blessing for me. So I have to feel like these seniors having, even a pet therapy, and I've seen them with pet therapy. They get so excited to see them, and just the touch, the feel of, and it brings back memories from when they had animals in their own homes. I've heard them they'll come in. I used to take my dog up as a therapy dog pre-COVID on Wednesdays, and they would get so excited. And every single time, a lot of them had, were in cognitive issues, would tell me the same stories about their same dogs that they loved. And it just made me feel so happy. And she loved it. She was in seventh heaven. But it just makes such a difference to their worlds.
Yeah.
So it really is just something that's such an amazing suggestion, and it's so important. And
It's a huge-
Eloise is on, as she works with hearing impaired. She mentions having an audiologist on staff
Yes.
is important as well.
Yes, and even if we don't have them on staff, that is a service that we bring into the communities. So just like the eye exams, those audiologists come in and do their evaluations and fittings for if there is equipment that needs to be done.
And it's very effective for
yeah.
fall risk.
Oh yeah.
One of the
Yes.
things that we found that the experience is a lot of times because of the cognition going down, a senior may be experiencing a decline in their hearing and no one knows it. An audiologist comes in there and now they're hearing, but then they're also walking straighter.
Yeah.
You know, that because that vertigo can actually throw a senior off, and we think it's a UTI or something like that, and it's not. It's the hearing. So yes, audiologists are very important.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Yes, for sure. I also had a comment from an anonymous attendee, so I'm not who this is, but there are providers that can provide rehab with artificial intelligence to reduce falls and keep people active. We use rehab, and they have artificial intelligence with Virtue Sense, VIRTUSENSE. I'm actually going to write that down.
Yeah, that's interesting.
Yeah, have them
Artificial
contact.
intelligence is amazing stuff.
Yeah, have them contact her. Our information is right here. You know, I wanted to go back to the therapy pets because at one of our networking events, we actually had a therapy pet come in that was a miniature horse. It was awesome. It was awesome. The residents in the community
they lined up.
Oh, they did. They lined up.
Oh my gosh, I would love that.
Yeah, it was awesome.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah. So I don't know how much time we have, but I just put up our contact page here.
Okay.
So I'm sending everyone a little bit of our beach sand there.
For those outside of Florida.
Yes.
Probably the folks from Wisconsin might like
There you
it.
go.
Although they have an amazing lake there that actually looks like the ocean. So
Yes.
they do. All right. Well, I would like to go ahead and make sure that no one has any more questions prior to jumping off here. So just shoot those in there if you have any more prior to jumping off. And I do want everyone to notice here that this is the contact information, although I am recording this, and I will be sending out the link. And with that link, the information will be in the email so that you'll have that as well. So you'll get that information all the way around, as well as my contact information and SeniorLivingGuide.com's contact information as well, if you don't already have it. So I think that we're going to go ahead and sign off because I haven't gotten any more questions in our box. But I do want to thank both of you, John and Angelett Johnson,
Yes,
Small Assisted Living Coalition, for joining us today, and Robin for the introduction after speaking with you and saying, oh my gosh, these guys have so much knowledge and they really have some information that I think that all of our clients and prospects and all those in the senior living community might really get some little nuggets out of. So we really do appreciate your time today.
Yes,
Thank you, darling. We appreciate the opportunity.
Thank you so much. And to everyone else, have an amazing day.
Bye.